Welcome back, dear listeners, to Fright or Flight, the podcast where we rank, recap, and review every horror movie in a given franchise. Hello, I'm Jumpscare Jer and/or Geraldine, the Fright of the podcast.
And I'm Frankie, the Flight of the podcast. Today, we're talking about A Quiet Place Part 2, continuing our first ever bite-sized season.
Yes, and we will have more upcoming bite-sized franchises to cover throughout the rest of the year and beginning next year as well. But now, this is the first one, so this is more exciting. Frankie, I do have to tell you something.
What's up?
Shh.
Well, I feel like that's not telling me something.
You gotta be quiet. Because it's a quiet place.
Geraldine, this is a podcast. We got to talk to the people.
Okay,
I wonder, is there podcasting in A Quiet Place land?
I would hope not.
You kind of have to...
They would probably have to do the ASMR stuff. Yeah. That'd be awful. Yeah. I'm gonna eat some chips right now. I hope that none of the little demon babies come get me. You know, just crunch and stuff.
Do you like ASMR?
No, it makes me uncomfy. Sometimes it's nice. It just depends on what it is. Like, I like scrapbook ASMR, like when they're like scratching stuff off, peeling stickers. That is nice. It's like really cozy on my ears. Mm-hmm. But anything like eating, I don't want to hear it. But I'm not bothered by hearing other people eat or sip anything like in person. Can't do it if it's like in the thing. It's just ugh.
Yeah, I can understand that. On a similar vein, I really like those videos on Snapchat that are like unsatisfying videos or whatever. Like where like a ball is about to like get into a hole, but it just doesn't fit at the last second or whatever.
No, I hate those. They make me want to cry. But yeah, welcome back to Fright or Flight. We're going to dive right in to A Quiet Place Part 2. But yeah, we have the cast. Last time we kind of didn't talk about their names because you said it wasn't as important. But we also didn't get a lot of information about it.
Yeah, I feel like I barely knew any of their names. I feel like they say each other's name like once or twice. This one, I feel like they definitely... say each other's names way more.
Way more. So now you kind of get to know names with the faces. But we are back at it again with the Abbott family. So we have Evelyn Abbott as Emily Blunt. So she's back. Reagan Abbott, Millicent Simmons. And then we have Marcus Abbott as Noah Jupe. And we also get John Krasinski back for a little bit with Lee Abbott as like a little flashback. Cillian Murphy as Emmett. We don't have a last name for him, unfortunately. Man on the Island is what he's credited as, but a little heads up in the future, he will be in the next movie. So we do get to kind of get some backstory.
Fun.
His name is Henry, played by Jamin Hansu. I had to look up how to, Jamin. Sorry, I had to look up how to pronounce it because I wanted to make sure I did it correctly this time because I'm really bad about it. So I did it for you guys at home. So yeah, we're beginning with day one at the beginning of this film. Yeah. Strong opening sequence.
Super cool. I've seen like John Krasinski in interviews be like, oh man, I didn't think this would get a sequel. Mm-hmm. So, I kind of screwed myself over and now it can't be the second one. But they figured out this super cool way to include. I mean, I think one of the most interesting parts of the movie is to see like that experience of like where everybody was when this outbreak kind of happened. When I first saw it in the theater, I remember thinking like, oh, they're aliens. That idea hadn't even come to me.
Yeah, I really like this idea because, we only get to see this environment from the previous film. So we're only just diving right in with like day 473, that kind of thing with the previous film. And so I'm like, okay, like we don't really get to see much other than the pharmacy and then they live on a farm and that's really it. And so I'm like, cool. With this movie, you get to see the whole town comes together and it's a tight-knit, like closed community.
Yeah, small town community.
Yeah, those kind of vibes. Everyone's at their kids, small town baseball game.
Yeah. Still bigger than your small town, it looks like.
No, smaller, I would say.
I don't know.
As far as like...
I saw at least 10 people at the baseball game.
We had my graduating class had 200 people. I would say that we had a pretty...
And that was pretty much the class, right? Like that's the one school in town.
We had no, kind of. And that's small.
And that also includes all the graduating farm animals from like Cal High School, because there's a lot of farms there.
We do have an agriculture community in the school, though. So we don't really know where they're located. At least I don't think
But it does seem like they're ramping up every movie so far, just in the sense of like, in the first movie, we really only have like the main family of 5.
Yeah.
And that's it. And we don't see that many other people. Yep. And this one, there's a lot more people. And then the next one looks like there's even more.
And I'm looking forward to it because it's kind of nice to build the foundation of what this universe is. Like, obviously, in some way, it is comparable to the Stranger Things franchise. The Stranger Things series.
You know what it keeps reminding me of? I guess you're reminding me of like The Walking Dead. Like this is kind of a zombie movie.
Yeah, I get that vibe, and like Stranger Things like had a baby, and that's what I get with this.
Okay,
Minus you just got to be like extra quiet. And I'm like, okay,
Impossible for you.
I would never survive. Never survive. Yeah. But I love this intense moment because it's, you know, sweet. All of the parents are there supporting their children. Lee steps away to go grab like oranges. I think he's trying to make like fresh squeezed orange juice or something for the kids after the game.
Well, I think they're just trying to eat the oranges.
That or eat them. I don't know.
You're acting like this is strange or something. Do you not like oranges?
No, I love oranges. They're one of my favorite fruits for sure. But I just think in that time crunch, he made it seem like he was in a time crunch.
Well, he's trying to get back. You know, there's innings in games and there's breaks. I know Geraldine's not a sports girl.
There's 9 innings in a baseball game, but I know this is a child's game, so I know that might be less. Okay. I just only recently learned that.
And plus the grocery store is like, I don't know, 3 minutes away.
That's true. He was literally within walking/jogging distance.
Yeah.
And then when we're there, we get to see this little snippet of a newscast, and it's like strange outbreak kind of thing.
I really like that because it kind of goes to show it's kind of a little bit of a commentary. It happens all the time where we're watching the news and like some horrific thing goes on in another country far away from us, and we just think, oh man, that sucks.
Yeah.
And then we go on with our day.
You want to know what's really crazy?
What's up?
I remember specifically when there was a drug outbreak of bath salts. My mom sat us down and was like, hey kids, there's a new drug. Don't do it. It's called bath salts. And we're like, okay, Mom, we don't do drugs, but whatever. Because I was like 13. I was still watching like Glee and stuff like that.
Well, sure, but people be doing that, you know.
But my sister, this is the funny part.
Okay.
She heard, we were listening to the radio, AM and FM radio back in the day when we used to listen to radios before Spotify and shit. She was listening to like 101.1 The Beat jams, you know, that we used to listen to that all the time growing up. Great radio station. Anyway, she was listening to that radio station. Of course, they pause for like little breaks, commercials, ads, whatever they do. And at this point, they stopped and they were playing like this newscast about, you know, a man eats another man's face. And my sister was like, oh my God, it's zombies. This is right when like Walking Dead was at its height as well. Yeah. My sister was panicked. And I was like, what? Like, I kind of giggled at her because I was like, girl, no.
Well, that's what everybody was calling it. They did like a zombie kind of thing.
But it was because of the bath salts. So it was drug related. It wasn't anything, you know, like serious like that. It's still serious because obviously somebody got hurt, but...
Yeah, but this scene it really spoke to me just because we do like just kind of shrug off things that happen far away from us.
We're very desensitized.
But then this gives us the opportunity to view in this scene like you see it happen to other people, you're like whatever, but you can when it happen when you're the one it's happening to. I mean, it is literally the end of the world. And
it quite literally happens so fast because not long after they go to the game and then they see this huge like explosion type thing in like the sky and they're like, what is happening? So then of course we see this happening and then all of a sudden people are like kind of panicked and they're like, oh, that's kind of weird. Let's go like do other things. Let's probably leave the game. And then of course I didn't know they actually had a name, by the way. They're called Death Angels. Okay. Found that out recently. So these Death Angels appeared and start wreaking havoc. They're destructive. They're destroying property, killing people, throwing things around. It's insane.
Yeah, it really is.
It really goes from 0 to 100.
The comments I have about this whole scene in general after the aliens come down is just that I felt like the first movie was very detail oriented and it did storytelling so well. And in this movie, I feel like it does that too. But I just feel like the filmmaking is so brilliant and on a whole nother level of the continuous shot of seeing like the camera movement panning from one thing to the next, going on that car ride with Emily Blunt and going all the way forward, then going all the way back, and the way it ties everything in together while still kind of giving you hints and kind of explaining and seeing John Krasinski's character Lee figure out that, you know, like it is sound that affects these things. It's just so great. And Bailey pointed out to me, like, no wonder the boy is traumatized. Marcus, like he had to look at all this stuff happening like firsthand. So he's scared for an obvious reason, and you know it sets up his arc for the movie, but it also explains like the reason he's been this way from the first movie. Right. And I have so much praise for this movie and its team. I'm not sure if it's the same team for the next. But if it is, I expect another great movie.
I'm not sure either. I have not done further research into day one, if I'm being honest. But as far as I know, this was the exact same team, so it was nice to have everybody come back together. Of course, just with some additional characters and crew members, of course. But with this opening, I have a couple of clips that I do want to show us because they're awesome. It shows a little bit of the behind the scenes. John Krasinski kind of gives us a little bit of a walkthrough of what his thought process is. So I have 2 clips. We're going to watch one where he is kind of talking about the expectation for, day one. And then we also get to look a little bit more into the scene with Emily Blunt, which is amazing.
Yeah.
We are currently in Akron, New York. And we chose Akron because we have a whole lot going on in this town. Whole lot of stunts, whole lot of big, high production value. So we needed a town that we could do all that in and control the whole town because our creatures are gonna make the grand entrance here on this huge, huge street.
What do we got? We got units headed out there now, EMS and fire.
Whereabouts?
I think out by Walker's Farm.
My goal with Dan and with Mike Gunther and his entire stunt team, who are phenomenal, was to make this feel very real. I think the first movie really put the audience in a state that they felt when they were in that theater, they were actually a part of this world. And that's what I want to do on this one. So we've got huge stunts down there. You've got a cop car upside down. It only flips over this 1 half moon size because that's exactly what our creature's power level is. Everything is storytelling. So all the special effects are designed to be exactly what would happen if a creature hit a police car.
Look at this. Yeah, it's so casual. It's so good, you guys. Oh, it's so great.
That's amazing to know that that's all in camera.
Yeah, I know.
I did not expect that at all.
I didn't either.
That's cool. And the movements are just spectacular. Also, just seeing John Krasinski in this movie, Lee, as a father, it's like man, he's so good as a father. Like, you always see him kick right into action. Like, he never freezes up or anything. Like, in that scene, the car gets flipped up by the alien, and immediately he starts running away because he knows he has to get his daughter in the truck.
Yep. And then here's his next scene about the scene with Emily Blunt.
I think the key for us in this movie was if I can keep everything in a one shot or very few cuts, you're gonna feel like you're a part of it. You're gonna feel like you're in the perspective of these characters. And so in the opening, I wanted to put your leading actress in a car and drive with her and never cut.
So calm. Yeah. What is happening?
What we wanted to do was put that actual car in a massive action sequence rather than just drive it forward and drive it back and have the action happen to the car. And the only way to do that was with this insane contraption on a biscuit rig. I think the rig was built in 5.5 weeks or something like that, which sounds like a long time. It's not. I think we had a total of 6 days to rehearse it, and 2 of those days were with Emily. And when we got here, they were so ready and so jazzed up that when Emily arrived on set, I said, I can do a rehearsal. And she said, no, I just want to go. I want to feel it the first time. Like, she's going back. That you were so dead straight is perfect. I think it's got to be, like, she doesn't even know what the hell she's doing, you know what I mean? When a bus is coming at you, you actually feel that that bus is coming at you because it's not hitting a lot of cars, it's just careening. And that very scary feel we capture, she said it's the easiest acting gig she's ever had, is having cars drive at her at top speed. She was genuinely fearing for her life. So that's what I offer as a husband.
Amazing. Like I said, brilliant. I mean, I think a big part of the reason these movies are so good is just genuinely due to John Krasinski and how he thinks. Like, I mean, his approach to filmmaking is so specific. He comes off to me as the type of guy that would watch movies, right? Yeah. And would be like, complain about 1,000,001 things. Like, why did this happen? And shouldn't have that been like this or whatever? And now that he's making the stuff, he's taking all of that into consideration, and everything makes sense to a certain level. And I appreciate that.
I really enjoy it as well. I think that he doesn't get enough credit. You know, in fact, I actually see more criticisms of these films than I do praise. And that's really shocking to me.
Me too, for sure.
People always say things like, oh, they're so shitty. And I'm like, wait, why? Like,
really?
To me, I think there's a lot of eeriness that I feel because you have to be so quiet. And because, whenever I saw the first movie in theaters, I'll never forget, it was so amazing. I was sitting, towards, which I hate sitting here, I was sitting at the bottom towards the front row, yeah. And it hurts my freaking neck, but whatever. I was there and I was so scared to eat my popcorn because, one, it's so quiet. You don't want to make a sound.
Yeah.
but like you don't know
Because you're gonna
what's
be
going
like crunch, crunch, crunch.
Yes, but you don't know what's going on. So I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna, even though now I'm gonna be eating for the next one, the day one, you'll be catching me like, oh my god, like. But it's just crazy because I just get so much anxiety watching these movies.
Do you know any of the negative criticism that that what do the people say about it?
They just don't like it. They think it's stupid. They think it's not original, and I think it is. So I disagree with it wholeheartedly. Of course, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one.
That's right.
Not everything's gonna work for everybody.
For sure.
But I think that John Krasinski has proven time and time again that he actually is a very good filmmaker. And not just with horror films. He just created the movie If. Oh my God. If you haven't seen it, go see it because I cried like a baby. It was so meaningful, so heartfelt. I was expecting something lighthearted. It was very heavy-hearted, but very good and hit me so deep. So he has a really good way of doing things like that. So I think that if you can walk away from these movies impacted, that's job well done.
And I do think a lot of this movie, if you're here for a specific, I know some people go watch quote unquote horror movies and their whole intent is to be scared, and they're just disappointed when they didn't get scared. And that's, I think, is a fair evaluation of having a good time or not in a movie, and determination if it's a good movie in your standards or not. But I don't think this is what these movies are here to do. I mean, I think I said in the last episode that these movies are about family first and like about heart and about storytelling before it is a horror film. Like it has those elements, of course. I mean, that's the whole basis of the plot. But I do think that this is about a story, and I really appreciate those kinds of films. I feel the same way about a lot of my favorite genre movies, that it's ultimately about something else. Like there's a lot of criticism towards superhero movies, for example, and it's very earned, it's considering most of them out there. But for example, the Guardian of the Galaxy films are very much about family, and they're very heartfelt. And the fact that they're flying and shooting lasers and doing all this other stuff is kind of second. It's not the priority of the films, and I really appreciate stuff like that.
I do too, and I think that they set up the foundation of this world very nicely because, like I said, it's comparable to me to Stranger Things in the sense that it is, these things that are kind of alien-like, that you're like, what the hell is happening? And then it's almost apocalyptic, except for in the Stranger Things world, it's not apocalyptic. We have like a really strong 11 who's, stopping these things. But that's, null and void compared to what we're talking about. It just gives me those vibes because, you have a family unit kind of fighting these things together. So to me, that's where I get that aspect. But again, like you mentioned, Walking Dead vibes as well because it is apocalyptic.
Yeah, especially the whole addition of Emmett.
Yeah.
I feel like something about him. You also get kind of like the wolf and cub kind of thing between him and Reagan in this movie. And I just think it works on so many levels. Of course, we have a baby now. In the last movie we had the baby be born, and now it's in the whole movie, after this intro.
So after day one, we pick up exactly where we left off with the last film. So
I'm sure you appreciated that.
I love continuity.
You love that.
Continuity is so like chef's kiss. I love it. I'm like, yes, keep going. So now there's a newborn involved. Makes things crazier, makes things harder. The family's navigating so much loss at this time because they just lost Lee. They also lost Bo, the young son, not very long before then as well. So it's just, suffering loss after loss, and they don't really have time to stop and process everything. They have to keep going because this world will not allow for them to just stop and dwell. Because if you do that, survival is just not possible. To me, that's how I interpret a lot of these survival-esque, universes, is you don't really have time to stop. You have to be quick on your feet. You have to be thinking.
I took a shower right before I came over here.
Okay, good.
I normally do. And while I was in the shower, I was thinking like, okay, well, if a zombie outbreak broke out right now,
okay,
like I feel like everybody should take a shower. This is probably the last shower you're gonna get in a long time.
I think about this all the time.
But I'm like, wait a
stink.
second. The first 10 minutes are probably the first hour when an outbreak happens. It's probably really important.
Yeah.
So maybe don't take a shower. Maybe you're wasting your time if you're taking a shower.
Maybe never shower. I'm just kidding. That's gross. But I do think about that often. I'm like, man, I bet they smell awful whenever I watch anything like that. Anything like any period piece, any apocalyptic piece, I'm like, Gross.
I love in general this whole scene, like of them having to traverse this area. You know, Reagan has like this little guitar amp that she carries around now with that speakerphone from the last movie. So now she has like a portable setup to mess it up. And so when the Abbott family is walking through like this kind of junkyard area, they set off an accidental trap of like a bunch of bottles that start jangling, and they're like, run. And so they start running, but one of the kids, Marcus, his foot gets caught in a bear trap.
That scene was painful.
It is.
And his acting was so good
man.
because he screamed.
What they do to that kid? Did he have like a shock collar on? Because he was like in pain. Like it looked, he's a great actor. Phenomenal.
Great actor.
Yeah, he definitely sold it. I mean, he knows he's terrified of these creatures and he's still screaming because he has no choice to. And also, he didn't immediately scream. Him like turning around, seeing what happened, and then screaming. It was so effective.
I'm gonna be honest though, I feel like I kind of act that way a little bit too, because it takes me a moment to process what the fuck just happened, and then I'm like,
yeah, I kind of get the sense in general that it probably wasn't so much pain as because he was probably in shock or whatever, but just surprise. I mean, like seeing that this thing has happened to you.
Quite simply, I would be screaming too, and then I'd be dead.
Yeah,
they would like snatch
and
my
it's
body
so tense. I'm like, he's screaming, the aliens are coming, and I kind of for a second forgot that they have like a defense mechanism. And Emmett is kind of watching this whole thing unfold from like a higher angle somewhere else, from his like the viewer on his sniper, and to see Reagan pull out her amp, start making the sound that the creatures don't like with her hearing aids, and then seeing the mom Evelyn pull out the shotgun, like it was so efficient.
First of all, baddies.
Yeah, and then, like their defense was like on point.
Yeah,
and like Emmett was shocked. He said he never seen any of them dead before,
which is amazing because, yeah, we'll get into that because I think it's a really important part of the story as well. But yeah, in pain, and as soon as they fight off the little death angels, which again, I wouldn't have called them that at all. I wouldn't have even thought to call them that. Like, Death Angels just doesn't sound like their name.
Well, I guess what the thing is they came from the sky, maybe?
I guess so, yeah.
And they killed
Sky
people?
Daddy sent them, because, but I think it's really, oh man, just the scene in general is so tense. Like, this whole movie, I was just, how people, well, I don't know if it's like a common thing. I don't feel this way personally, but some people get really on the edge of their seat, but they're like, oh man, that makes my butthole hurt, kind of thing.
I've never heard that before.
Or my butt hurt, not butthole. Sorry.
Who says that?
My family says that.
Really?
Ironically, they're like, oh, watching that makes my butt hurt, and I'm like, what?
Interesting. Okay, I've never had that experience.
Like, I guess because like they're clenching, kind of thing. I don't know.
Okay,
like, it's just like maybe. To me, whenever something like queasy or awful like that happens, and I'm like, oh man, I can put myself in their shoes and I can feel pain in my body where I should be feeling their pain.
Yeah.
And I can feel it in my feet mostly.
In your feet.
Mostly in my feet.
Yeah,
and
I mean, when in the first movie where Evelyn steps on that nail, woo!
Been there, done that, babe. Hurts.
Ouchie.
But yeah, I love the way that Evelyn, covers his mouth.
Yeah.
And she's, crying with him kind of thing. Oh my God. She's very empathetic and very nurturing, even in this
high stress environment.
Yeah, high stress environment. And then they got a little baby with them too.
Yeah. Now, do you think, talking about Evelyn, you said nurturing and, still trying to figure things out. Do you think Patrick would have like the same level of patience with you in this environment?
Maybe. He is
or would
a
he
very...
be like, shut the fuck up, shut the
He is a... We'd probably do that, but he also is very caring. Like, he's like a very like big teddy bear kind of guy. Like, he looks like he'd be really mean. That was my first impression of him. I thought he was like, he looks kind of like he'd be an a-hole. He is, but he's a lovable a-hole, and he's my a-hole. But also he is very, he cares about me and loves me so much. And I'm like, okay, he does want me to not be in pain. However, I don't want anyone to touch me when I'm in pain. Like, I'm like, don't look at me. Don't breathe near me. Don't touch me. I need silence. I don't know why, but if I hear anybody trying to be like, are you okay? It makes me physically hurt more. I'm like, la, 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 la.
Well, I think if this is me and you,
Okay.
if you were the kid, Marcus, and you got stuck in a bear trap,
you'd probably be like,
no,
right?
no. That'd be great
okay.
for me because you'd be screaming your head off. And then I could run somewhere else. And, I'm safe because they're going to come after you.
He's going to sacrifice himself. Sorry. say it. So yeah, I guess you'd just leave me there to die.
But your sacrifice wouldn't be in vain.
I feel like it would be.
No, because you'd let me escape because of your
I'm not
death.
letting you do. I didn't consent to it.
No, but that's just what's happening.
Okay. Anyway, so we're gonna do a quick little plot rundown as well. So right when this is happening, of course, they're making their way to safety. They're seeking refuge because the farm is no longer safe after everything that just happened. Lee has just passed as well, so they come across this abandoned steel plant where we meet Emmett, and we actually get to meet Emmett on day 1, and he looks very different from where we met him now on like day 474.
Thought he looked the same. He has just longer beard.
He's got a longer beard, but he looks very apocalyptic. Like he's like resourceful and stuff. I don't know. He just doesn't look like they look because they're like, I mean, Evelyn's still wearing like a flowery dress type thing. Mm-hmm. Like they're coming from their home. So he's prepared. They're kind of not prepared. And so they're trying to seek refuge to find safety and protection. Yeah,
Marcus kind of looks like he's about to like interview to attend a prep school in this movie, if I'm being honest.
I guess Marcus is just Marcus, you know. We'll get into Marcus and how I know he's a kid, so it's a long conversation.
I'm sensing like I'm very surprised at what's coming out of the tone I'm getting from you right now.
Go ahead, Bailey.
You know, I was just gonna say there's like a big part here when they get to the factory and they realize, at least Evelyn realizes that she's talking to Emmett. She's like, whenever you saw the fire, did you ever think to come and help us? Or, to come and see us? And he was like, no. And I was like, it's just, as a viewer, I was like, Evelyn, you never went to go and help him, though. You saw his fire every day.
True.
And you never went down there. You and Lee, kept your family in your own little thing. Y'all never went out to help people.
Yeah, that's a very big point to mention. But of course, Emmett when they find him, he's alone. He had, at the beginning of the film, there's implied that he's married and he has children and stuff. We don't get to really meet a lot of them. But at this point in the film, we don't get to see any of them. And we're like, oh, okay. And that kind of, leads into Emmett is a broken, distrustful man. He's like, I don't want to help you. I don't want nothing to do with it.
Don't have enough food. Don't have enough space.
Which I get it. He's also being smart in some aspects because if I were in Emmett's shoes, first of all, I just want people to know at home, if my family had died, all of my family, and it's just me in this apocalyptic world, I don't care about myself at that point. I'm going to, someone unalive me or I would sacrifice myself to those little thingies.
Me and you earlier. You get in the bear trap, I run away.
No. That's if I have nobody else. If I still have... I don't think you're understanding, but okay. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Emmett is just, I feel bad for him. I really do. But there's also a lot of things that I like about his character. He's just very dark. But Emmett does not want to help them. They come across him and he's like, no, whatever. Well, then while they're there with Emmett, they hear this signal on the radio. And it's Beyond the Sea. And I believe it's the Bobby Darin version of it. Doesn't really matter. Love that song. It's a great song. So Reagan cracks the code and finds out, hey, this is a signal. Somebody's reaching out to us. Mm-hmm. I want to go find out what's going on. Marcus is like, no, I'm going to tell on you, little bitch ass. Anyway, Reagan ventures out on her own. She's like, fine, I'm going to go do it by myself. And Emmett's like, no. So Evelyn's like, please go get my daughter. So Emmett goes after her, but then he ends up tagging along with her and they go on their little adventure. At the same time while this is happening, Marcus is still in pain from his injury that he suffered with the bear trap. Ouchie. Evelyn's like, hey man, we need supplies. I gotta go get some. You gotta stay here with the baby. And he's like, oh no. So then that happens. And then at this point in the movie, so many things are happening at the same time. Chaos ensues. Everything goes awry. Everything is a shitstorm at this point. But that is kind of what the rough breakdown of the plot is. The family is at a different point in this film versus the last film. And I do have a clip from some of the cast members talking about the shift in what this film brings versus what the previous film specifically focused on parenthood. This one is a kind of different meaning, and it's kind of nice to hear from, John Krasinski and some of the cast members of what the shift is in the tone as well. So we're going to listen to them talk about the shift of the movie.
I just think for me, I found this one emotionally just a more intense experience because there isn't any respite from the agony of what they've gone through. There's not one moment where it's pleasant for them. It's just urgent, and it is like a runaway train, this film. If the first film was almost like, how do you avoid getting cut? I feel like the essence of this film is, oh my God, how do we stop the bleeding? You know, it just doesn't stop. And so I feel probably one of the most intense experiences I've had doing some of those scenes.
People who liked the first movie, and millions of people did, is the fact of just going like, okay, now we're giving you a glimpse at a bit more of this world. How it affected more people just outside of this sort of nuclear family, and we're just pulling back a little bit. And I think that's very, very exciting to glimpse. Because again, you start putting yourself into their shoes.
The metaphor of the first one was parenthood. If you extend that metaphor, could I play with that metaphor longer? And I think there's an evolution, an innate evolution in the metaphor that really became powerful in my mind. What I mean by that is, if the first one was about the promise you make as parents to your kids, that as long as you're with me, I can keep you safe and everything's gonna be fine. That's a promise that every parent makes to their child, and sadly has to be inevitably broken at some point in that relationship. And so I thought, when that promise is broken, that's growing up. And so when you let your kids go out into the world on their own, that's what growing up's all about. And so that's what the metaphor of the second one became, the idea of these kids and this family dealing with loss.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's so true. I think there's a lot of elements of not just seeing similarly to how earlier on in the podcast I thought about how much bigger the like going from this small family following these 5 characters and then inside this one house, and now we're getting to interact with like a bigger area and see their town or whatever.
Yeah.
I feel the same thing can be said about so many of the characters. Each one of them has their own plight in this movie.
Yeah.
Whereas in the last one, it was just more like you connect a little bit with like themes of parents and daughter, but this one is more like the individual characters themselves and what they have to deal with and the obstacles they have to overcome. And I think that is it just has more definite. I mean, I think what Emily Blunt said is completely right about like how the first one avoiding a cut, while this one is like, how do we stop the bleeding? I think that's a very apt thing to say.
It is. And I think that, you know, speaking of Evelyn, the character herself, there is such a huge burden on her, not in the sense that she's a parent, so it's not the children that are the burden. It's like, but you have to survive. You have just given birth literally days ago, and you just lost your husband. So like, just trauma after trauma. Because I mean, childbirth can be traumatic, and that seemed like a traumatic birth to me. I don't know what she would qualify as traumatic, but to me that looked traumatic in the sense that she had to be quiet until like one of her children could assist in distracting the death angel so that she could scream and you know, get the child out of her, like just protect her. She is just the embodiment of like strength and survival, and
she's so smart,
so resourceful.
Yeah, very resourceful. There's a scene in the movie where she returns after going out to get some more like oxygen tanks, and she sees just a creature about, and so like she comes up with this whole idea to blow up an oxygen tank and to like kind of make it create an explosion, and it catches it explodes right next to the creature, and then the creature starts walking out of the flames, and I'm like, oh no, it didn't work. But then the sprinklers come on, and I'm like, oh, this was part of her idea. She noticed the sprinklers earlier, and she's just so smart. Yeah,
very resourceful. I again would not survive in this world in any way. I'm not resourceful. I overlook little thing like I am mostly a big picture type of person. I don't pay a lot of attention to details. So like I would not notice those things. Yeah. I'd be like, oh, I noticed there was a crumb on the floor over there, but that's not helpful to anybody. So
you needed to have been on the island early on, it sounds like.
Yeah. Because been dead. Then we have Reagan, of course. So we get to see Reagan, and it's more of a coming of age kind of vibe for her in this film. We get a lot more screen time with Reagan than before, I feel like. And this is really her growing up and stepping up into like not a protector like role, but kind of in some aspect. It's not
I feel like in a lot of ways she has a feeling that she has to prove herself. And she does. I mean, she always felt like her dad was keeping her from the world, probably because of her disability, probably to keep her safe. But she always wanted to be a part of it. She always wanted to go and learn how to take care of herself, because she has that natural instinct. And in this movie, we actually get to see that at play, and that she can handle herself.
Yeah, and I think that we get to see her grow as a leader and, gain some confidence. And not only that, but she has found some way to weaken these creatures that nobody else probably knows about other than her. I mean, Cillian Murphy's character, Emmett, even said, like, I've never seen one dead before. Like, this is an amazing thing that she can bring to help others. And so that's kind of what she does in this film. And it's really cool to watch her character blossom.
Yeah, and also to feel that responsibility, like that she has something and she needs to risk her own life, really, to potentially help others.
And I also have a clip of Millicent Simmons talking about her arc in this movie with Regan.
Oh, it's a huge change for Regan. And I mean, Regan really looked up to her father, looked up to Lee. She admired his courage. And when he dies, it just, she felt like she felt a burden. I now have to take on my father. I need to be the leader of the family. I can't be a child anymore. I have to quickly become an adult, and I have to find the competence. She had to find the competence in herself to do that.
Yeah, I think that that's what we're talking about here, and she did do those things, and I feel like there is so much to be said about those kinds of characters. I don't know how often they get represented, especially by women.
Yeah.
In these roles, and I appreciate the representation.
I do too, and I also think that her character not to put words into what maybe Regan's character feels, but to me, what I interpret is she feels this sense of responsibility to help others as her father has helped them as well, especially with her having this knowledge that nobody else has.
Yeah.
So I think that that's an asset and a huge strength of her character. And the way that I'm not going to sugarcoat it. The way that they leave this film, it's very open ended. There's not a definite ending. So I think that it essentially, leads to what's to come. And I think there's going to be more expounding on the Abbott family, maybe some more of Emmett as well.
Yeah, kind of similar to the first one.
Very similar to the first one where they left it off, which was perfect. Even if they don't have an anticipation of it being anything like that, I just have this feeling that there's more to this universe. And I think that we all kind of are enjoying it so far, and we all want to know what, happened everywhere. I'd like to know all of these different stories and get to kind of see people in their survival, because we all have like the trauma responses. You have your flight, you have your fight or freeze. So it's very interesting to see how every person takes on a different form of that, response. And of course, Regan and Evelyn, I feel like, are fighters. And that's perfectly fine, but some people just don't respond well to that. And that leads me to Marcus. I just have beef with him because he's a kid. That's really it. He's doing kid shit, what any kid would do in this situation, and he's afraid.
I don't know. I don't think it's just a child. I relate to a lot to him just now as an adult, in the sense of like, I make little mistakes like he does all the time. And I think Bailey could also relate also to like not feeling ready for the call of like responsibility.
I get that. Completely valid. I think it's, to me, his innocence and him kind of, not only that, his trauma definitely has a huge impact on the way that he responds to things. But I don't know, I think that it's almost like he doesn't trust that things will be okay because of his trauma. Yeah. And it's very valid. And as a character, I can value that.
Well, I want to hear what
my criticism for just kids not doing what they're told. Like, stay put, I'll be right back. And then he's like, I'm going to go do the opposite. And then, obviously it's written in the script, so that's why it happens. But in my brain, I'm just like, why don't you listen? Just stay where you are.
I have a little bit of beef with that scene in particular, not because he's going out and doing what he shouldn't be doing, but more so just because I don't see what the benefit of it is to the story. Like, there's this whole scene of him going upstairs in the factory or whatever, and he finds like what I can only assume is the dead body of Emmett's wife, I think.
Yeah, that's what it's
And then we
implied.
never touch on that again. It's only briefly there for like half a second as like a jump scare, and then it initiates one of the Death Angels coming to the factory. But I just feel like story-wise it's a little weak. Like we should have focused on it a little bit more or something, or had more exposition for it to make sense. I don't know why, but I thought like Emmett's wife's body, I thought that was like a bigger thing in the movie. I felt like I remembered it being a bigger thing, and then when we watched it, it was literally half a second, and that was it.
Yeah, I mean, it's mentioned, of course, and he carries around the photos, and he's, like, drawing photos of, his family members, Emmett is. And, I mean, it's touched on that she passed away there at the steel plant because of sickness, because of illness. We don't know that, her body, until we find out with Marcus that her body is still there. So, I mean, one can only assume this man is just deeply affected by whatever he's going through as well.
Surprised he's still around.
Yeah, like I said, if it were me, I'd be sacrificing myself or unaliving. That's simply, I would never want to live in an apocalyptic world anyway, so I ain't cut out for that shit. I think that what the point of it is I guess the, just the whole situational, like, I guess irony or anything like that, where we don't, like, we are kind of following him and we know something that the other characters don't know. So it's something like that, I guess, just to kind of give you like this sense of like, oh no, I know a secret that they don't know yet. I think that's really the only driving.
I mean, they know his wife is dead,
but they don't know that her corpse is still upstairs.
So why is that relevant to the plot?
I feel like that is kind of relevant because this man is, so deeply impacted. And I think that it has a bigger part in his
character
response to. I'm not helping anybody. I'm not getting attached to anybody. Like, he's like really disconnecting himself. Also, out of survival means too. But I think that there's like he doesn't want to have to care for other people because he's already gone through so much.
Right.
So I think that that's what the
ultimate. You know what?
I
can kind of I'm following you there. I kind of appreciate that because that kind of is his arc. He's like he's a little reluctant to help the Abbott family, and later on when he does get to the island and he's having a conversation with that gentleman, he does say something like this is what he did, he came to help. And I appreciate that he had his arc.
Yeah, I love a good arc. It's very nice. I think that if there is a third movie, maybe he gets very badly injured toward the end of this film.
Yeah,
I don't think he'll make it to the next film.
Maybe.
Personally.
I mean, it looks like he was ready to sacrifice himself.
Yeah, I think so. But that's the thing is, like, we'll go ahead and talk about Emmett because I think that he's a very important character into this film as well. He's very apprehensive. He's very resourceful. He's emotional. He has suffered a lot of loss. He doesn't have his family anymore. Both of his children have passed. Like, this man is literally alone, and he's just surviving. Why is my question? Like not that like he can't do that, obviously, but like my point is like he's so deeply impacted, right? That he's like, I'm not gonna connect to anybody. I'm not gonna help you. No. If you're so afraid of like connecting, I just don't what is your purpose in trying to survive yourself? You know what I mean?
No, I can get like some.
It's just a question that I'm like reflecting.
But I think most people don't feel that way. Actually, like Bailey could not relate to that at all. Like it's. I do know what you're saying.
Because like if I were in Emmett's position, like
yeah,
I would be like, what's the point of anything?
Yeah.
And that's just me.
Yeah, that is just you. I like not just you, but I will. There's a bunch of people that all they know is survive, and it's just like the environment and the people in their lives isn't the basis of like their purpose or whatever. Some people live for themselves.
I get that, and that makes sense. But I guess in my brain, I'm just like, in this world, what are you gaining by just being alone? You know what I mean?
But here's the thing: you could reverse the question. What do you gain from it just being you and your wife, you and your husband? You know what I mean? It's like whatever you find in that relationship to others, like the value can be applied to anything else, or it can be applied even just to yourself.
Well, and that makes sense. And we do see his arc, of course. Obviously, he opens up. He ends up helping Reagan. At first, he's like, "No, we're gonna go back. We're gonna go back. You guys have to be out the next day." Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And then he ends up helping her. And he ends up going to this island with her, and he ends up saving her life, and she saves his life. So there's a lot of, helping and camaraderie there, and I love it because it really makes both of the characters grow as well. But he ultimately, becomes like he wants to protect her at the end, which, like, again, complete 180. But I think it's just interesting. I just reflect on that stuff, and I'm like, I just like to know kind of like what is motivating these characters.
Yeah, and also you putting yourself in their shoes.
Yeah, because I mean that's what anybody should do. Because I'm not trying to tell you how to watch things or consume your media, but like to me, it makes a lot of sense to kind of put myself in and fully immerse myself in what would I do in this situation. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of another like thing that they kind of want you to think about and reflect on with his character as well. So here is a clip about Emmett and also Cillian Murphy playing Emmett.
The people that are left, what they've become, they're not the kind of people worth saving.
Cillian Murphy plays Emmett. His talent is so good at all times. We couldn't wait to have him jump in our world. The beauty of Cillian's character was that there's so much loss in his life. He doesn't feel the need to be a part of any community.
He is shut down, unwilling to help, frightened, fearful, done.
I don't know why you came all the way up here. There's nothing left.
That encounter they have in that tiny little space is incredibly charged and incredibly intense.
I can't help you.
Please. He's actually a representation of the rest of the world. There's a darkness to him, and there's a fear level to him that makes him unpredictable.
You don't know, do you? Oh, I do.
That's what we're trying to create, that the audience goes, oh my God, what would I do if I was in that situation?
Yeah. It's interesting. I love his character in the movie. Mm-hmm. He looks like he listens to Top 40 Country. That he knows, that I Had Some Help, song that's on the radio right now.
Don't know.
It's a Morgan Wallen song.
I don't listen to that.
And Post Malone.
Yeah. Postie's coming out with a country record. Let's go. We all love country music on this podcast, of course.
I like old country, not new country.
And to know that, and then him, the actor, being like Irish. I assume he's Irish.
Yeah.
I don't know why I would. His name is Cillian Murphy.
His name is Cillian.
I never thought about it, and just like seeing him talk, and he sounds just like the kids from like Think You Could Stop What We Do. I doubt it. It just, I enjoy it.
I don't know what that is either, but
Geraldine's not on the internet enough.
Seriously, in the past through months, I'm like, does Geraldine even go on the internet?
Yeah,
Geraldine's the youngest of us, and she's the most millennial.
Yeah.
I'm chronically online, I feel like, but I don't know all of the things. But I'm mostly on Twitter.
Oh.
But I mean, I'm mostly
that
on Twitter
kid
for
Think What You Could Stop What We Do?
No, I don't.
Doubt it.
I mean, I still know other things.
I don't know.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I know other things.
Sure. Okay.
Anyway, moving on. So yeah, Emmett's a great character. A lot of different elements to him. You kind of go through all of the elements and the emotions.
Fire, earth, water.
I meant emotions,
air.
but I said elements. I don't know why I said that. You go through all of the emotions with him. And I think that that's, a testament to his acting anyway, because he's a brilliant actor. But I think that he's, like he mentioned in the film, like you don't know what these other people are like. There's a dark side to them. Yeah. And
it's dark-sided.
And I think that, that does speak true when there is this uncertainty to what's going on, apocalyptic universes.
I mean, it's a great line to say, the people around right now aren't worth saving. And it's so sad because I do think, and I feel like we're at an age where people do not trust each other. And if right now in the regular world, we're not willing to help a stranger on the side of the road or whatever.
Oh yeah, no, I would never do
that. See, what are the chances that during an apocalypse we'd be trusting anybody?
Yeah, no. Like I said, I wouldn't want to live in an apocalyptic world anyway. I'd be gone. But good luck to you.
So would you relate to Emmett here when he's like, "Oh, I'm not going to go help your daughter"?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely understand. I'd be like, that's your kid. But I think that, whenever we reach again, Reagan cracks his code, she hears that song, and she, wants to go to this island because she tracked the coordinates. So smart. I would never do anything. I would never be able to crack any code like that. I'd be like, Bobby Darin, hell yeah, beyond the sea. I'd be enjoying it. But so they venture out to this, area, and they're on this dock, and then we meet some fucking awful people. So it's kind of like a foreshadowing of these awful people that that they haven't encountered yet, that we get to encounter with them. And I'm gonna tell you my first thought. I thought they were killers/cannibals.
Me too. I verbalized this to Bailey on the rewatch. Like I didn't even remember, and I was like, these guys.
Yeah, I was like, they're gonna try to eat them.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought it was really slick that this little girl, like, playing poor pitiful. And he's like, oh, hey, little girl. And then she's like, ha!
Yeah.
Like crazy. Wasn't expecting that.
Survival,
Survival. I get it. You gotta do what you gotta do to survive. And that's why in apocalyptic world, that ain't for me, because you're gonna kill me? Go ahead. Have at it, Mm-hmm. So I think that it's really cool and important that they showed this scene in general.
So you'd say you wouldn't even struggle? Like you
no. I'd be like, oh no.
What if you have your own kids? You have to, think about them.
We'll talk about that. I think that I wouldn't have kids in this apocalyptic world. Delete us the fetus, I'm not doing that.
Right.
No thanks. I'm pro-choice. We're pro-choice here, so it's my choice. I ain't doing it.
Yeah, but that's why you're pregnant. If they're already like 10 and 14 years old and they're walking around.
We'll talk about it because we'll talk about it.
Okay. Just foreshadowing.
Anyway, so yeah, I thought they would be killers, cannibals. They were not. They were like thieves and just trying to kill them for funsies, I guess.
Yeah. Really weird vibes though with the gentleman like kind of caressing Reagan in her face a little bit.
Yeah, I really thought something bad was going to happen here, like almost like SA kind of vibes. And I was like, please God, no, she's a child. Please. I'm glad they didn't, obviously. I just think the worst thoughts, but that's kind of easy to do whenever you see these threatening people or characters come about.
Well, I mean, he got what's coming.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, we get to see this beautiful connection moment between Emmett and Reagan. And he, at the beginning on day one, with Reagan being, a deaf character as well, like, people around her trying to understand how to communicate as well. And he was like, how do you do this at the beginning of the film? Foreshadowed to later. It makes sense and it's important. He remembered that sign and used it with her and was like, swim kind of thing. And so she swims and he saves her, and he also saves her hearing aid.
Yeah, puts it in his mouth. Yeah. But he's so smart. The way he was tied up and got all the bottles around him. It's like, she dives, I make the noise, and then he's stuck.
Perfect. Yeah. Like, just an amazing, like, survival strategy. Like, that's the thing. Strategic. You lost me there.
Well, I thought you said you're really good at, like, escape games.
I have other people there with me. They carry me.
Okay.
They carry me. They'll be like, what's that over there? And then I'm like, what does this plug do? And they're like, on this, there's probably like a sign that says this plug does not do anything.
I really couldn't relate to that at all. I did my first escape game recently, like a few months ago.
I'm not
and
that bad.
I felt like I was the only person in the whole room like doing anything.
I'm actually not bad at escape games.
Frank just looked at me because he knows he's dead ass lying.
No,
yeah, you do. I don't remember you doing anything.
I practically solved the whole room.
No, you did not. I remember you walking around aimlessly. Like, I remember you making jokes.
I don't know if we make it out.
I don't know if we make it out. I don't think we would.
I don't know if we escape.
We have like an hour, and we'll be like, can we get an extra hour?
If it was Patrick and Bailey, though, they probably would get it like immediately.
No, yeah, Patrick, that stuff just clicks so easy for him. For me, like, it just takes me a minute because I have to like recognize the pattern. Like, I think Bailey's also mentioned this. You and I apparently don't have pattern recognition like very well. So
maybe if there was like some kind of food motivation involved.
Oh my god! Or there's like a fear like motivating me. Like maybe if you don't get out, like zombies are gonna come get you. Then I'd be like, oh my god!
You
like,
die in the game. You die in real life.
No, I actually do really well if I have a fear motivator.
Really?
That's what motivates me to get up every day, work and stuff. I'm like, if I lose my job, I'm going to lose my house, that kind of thing. So.
Oh, wow. That's a stressful way to live your life, Geraldine.
It is, but you know what? It helps.
Okay. Whatever works, I guess.
Sorry, there's a lot to dump on people.
Fear is my motivator.
It is. It's a great motivator.
I don't know if it's a healthy one.
It's not healthy, but it works. And then, So anyway, now we're at this island.
Somebody's gonna call like somebody on the police on you and be like, hey, I think she needs some help.
Can we get a welfare check?
Yeah.
And
so
then that would motivate her.
It would. Yeah. So then here we are. We actually make it to the island as well. And then we meet Man on Island, also known as Henry, who will be in...
Are you bothered by this Man on Island credit?
I think it's a shitty way to be. You can't name him. It just have to be Man on Island or Waitress Number 1. I hate it.
Listen, this movie, as much as I love it, and as much as I praise John Krasinski for these movies, it introduces 2 cool black characters and they both die.
Yeah.
And they're both unnamed. So
Woman on Island and Man on Island. Why?
Yeah. Now, I will say I would love to have a role named after this. I don't know why. I think Bailey played a role like this where she was like tree number 2 in a high school play or something. It just seems like a fun thing to put on your resume.
No, it's not.
Like, I want to say I was like rock number 3.
Well, you know what? You can add that to your resume and nobody would care.
Yeah, nobody would question it. But we get to meet him and we get to meet this entire community. And they're like in a safe haven. They're like living their life, not afraid of anything, having like a fire.
Like camp out, cook out, barbecue.
Literally gave me Walking Dead vibes though, because that's literally what I thought of, like you mentioned at this point. And I was like, so Walking Dead of them. So crazy. I'm just kidding. It's just apocalyptic. It's just a trope. It's fine. But I was like, something bad's gonna happen. Like my brain is just prepared. I'm like, they're too happy. Everything's too quiet.
It looks very
and too
4th
still.
of July.
Yeah. Very summertime vibes. They're like all like dressed in like summertime clothes by a fire at night, which normally gets...
Yeah, but this is based up in New York State.
That's true.
So
I
it's
forget about that.
Nowhere near as hot.
We got American flags.
We get a really cool moment where we get to, breathe for just a second where it feels safe.
Yeah.
And then it's not. Because obviously, unfortunately, one of the death angels, I almost called them angel walkers. I don't know why I almost called them that. And one of the death angels followed them by accident in a boat.
Yeah, Reagan and Emmett killed all these people.
Yeah. They kind of did. They brought that shit.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's not their fault. They didn't know, but also they kind of did.
There's a scene that reminds me so much of 1917. That at the end, I'm sorry, spoilers for 1917 if you haven't seen it. It's a World War I movie actually.
Okay.
Where one of the characters, like the climactic scene, is him like running in front of the trenches or whatever, and like it reminded me seeing Emmett like run to the community and be like I forgot what he was yelling, but he was basically warning everybody.
He's literally just saying run.
Yeah, he's like, run. Loudest I've heard him in the whole movie.
The British
of course.
are coming. Could you imagine? That'd be kind of funny.
The red coats start popping up.
Yeah, but we get a really cool interview moment that I have to share with you with Jaimin and Killian, and they're all like sitting with this also Emily Blunt and Millicent. They're all sitting reading some cards from Fandango. So they're cards like questions about the characters in the movies. So I'll let them do the talking because I'll shut up now.
So for you two, Killian and Jaimin, you're very new to this story. What did you do to get to know your characters?
You grew
Me, absolutely nothing. I ventured into the story very, it was an adventure. It was an exciting idea of going on to a film, which stories I had no idea,
It was a leap of faith.
It was a total leap of faith, and it was all the faith was on based on the first film, the success of the first film, and obviously, the director John, and that was
where
wonderful.
is he?
Where is he?
Yeah, where's John?
Yeah.
Where's John?
Yeah.
Go on, Kill. How did you get into character, Killian?
Well, I spent a lot of time not shaving.
Or showering, which was gross.
No,
but,
I did
yeah,
shower.
you did.
Come on. That's all.
Very fragrant.
Always. Well, we talked a lot, John and I, about, I guess, the backstory of Emmett. A lot of which is, you don't see on screen, but was kind of pertinent to the story and the fact that there would have been a relationship between Emmett's family and the Abbotts, and that would have informed, obviously, the relationship when they meet again. But the fact that he is a completely different character, like unrecognizable, physically and sort of psychologically, because of the result of trauma and loss and everything. So we spent a lot of time talking and picking hats.
That's interesting.
I'm excited to get to know Jaimin's character in the next film, because I think that I liked the way that his character presented in this film.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be exciting to see, how we get how that character.
I'm excited to see his character.
Yeah.
He doesn't seem to have a lot of press training. Just funny. He's like, yeah, no, I gotta know.
It's funny to me. I thought
it's funny. It's cute.
It's relatable, And Killian, actually, of course, is like a bigger character, of course, as well. So
charming man.
He is very well known in the public industry for having people think that he looks uninterested in everything.
Oh, really?
It's really funny.
Yeah.
And he's actually worked with Emily Blunt in Oppenheimer, which is a film that you saw earlier this year. I did not get to see that yet. I still would like to see it. Well, that was last year, wasn't it?
That was last year, yeah.
What the hell is time?
Yeah.
Anyway.
Over a year ago now.
Yeah, absolutely bonkers. I still need to watch it. But in their press tour, there was a moment where somebody played like an interview moment with him, and they all reacted to it. And it's just really funny because he'll be like, ah, kind of almost like the Kanye West type thing, where like have a moment where you're like, haha.
And then he cuts it out, yeah.
Because he goes from like that to like uninterested, not like mad looking, but just uninterested.
He's
like
probably
I don't want to be here.
And he has like social cue. I have to laugh right now, and that's what he does.
It's funny. It's just funny because like they all like laugh with him about it, so like he knows that it's a thing.
He's self-aware.
But like I get it though. Like he is such vibes. Whenever he's just looking around, like vibes all around. So I just appreciate it. But I wanted to share that moment because I thought it was some funny banter between them. They all seem like they have really good chemistry together as well. And,
oh, yeah, for sure.
And I just like that as well. And we'll dive into the next part where we talk about the monsters, of course, the Death Angels. I just found out today, by the way, that they were called that because I saw this really cool clip from not day one, the movie itself, but from people like Lupita and Joseph Quinn doing their press tour right now with Day One, and some interviewer was like, "Oh, do you prefer Demogorgons or Death Angels?" And she was like, "What are Death Angels?" It's a really funny moment because they're like, "That's from this franchise." I didn't know that until today, and I was like, "The hell?"
Yeah, it's a lot similar to like the names of the characters. I mean, they never refer to it.
Right. And also like we're still figuring out in this universe what they are and what they do, kind of thing. So I feel like it's not common knowledge unless people have just kind of
probably
built
just on the
this
internet
lore.
somewhere.
Somebody probably came up with it and made the lore itself, and that's fine too. Whatever works. But yeah, I think that we get more action with them in this film than we did in the previous film. I feel like we get to see them throw things around more. It's just very, very destructive, and it's very scary. And
for sure,
I don't like the way they move. I mean, it's very, I don't know,
like their heads.
Yeah, I don't like it. But I have a video about them deciding what they wanted to do with that, which is really cool.
A creature that size wouldn't normally be able to move really quickly. But what we found worked really well was when they're hunting, they move really slow, but all of a sudden when they're in attack mode, they move lightning fast, and that made it scarier. And then the flaps was always that sort of idea. John always described it as sort of, seaweed moving underwater like a current hit it. And they shaped around depending on the direction of where the sound came from. And they kind of anticipated them hearing, actually. They express a lot about their mood or even how they're reacting to something. So oftentimes you'll see that their flaps might be closed, but depends on how strong the frequency is, or then they react differently, or the flaps are more aggressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very specific look. I was talking to Bailey about them just in general, this movie. It's like, so one, how smart are they? And like, what are they here to do? Like, do they have like a plan, or like are they just like mindless creatures hunting? Maybe they're not the creature. Maybe they were creatures that were sent down by another alien life form or something.
It's really interesting because like at least in like Stranger Things with those creatures, we kind of get like the motivation. If you watch along, I'm not going to spoil anything because it's not too late to get started and join in on that because we'll get season 5 in the next 10 years. Who knows? They'll be like 80 years old. It's fine. So in that series, like we kind of get a purpose, but they're also like sent by this one guy sort of thing. So it'd be kind of nice to know more into that. Like, is it like World of the War type things? Like that movie with Tom Cruise. I don't know if you ever watched that growing up. That's a good movie. It's actually a really good movie. It's just really crazy to me that they just kind of came from nowhere.
Yeah. It's a mystery.
Sky Daddy said there's too many people.
Apparently.
We gotta kill some. Do some, what's it called?
Population control?
Yeah, population control. I think that they're weird. I think that I don't like the shape of them. I don't like the...
That's all praise, though, yeah?
It's all praise. It's like creepy. And I mean, obviously, Dead by Daylight, if you don't jump in on this action right now, what are you doing? Because I think that would definitely be something that I'd be squealing. Here, we talked about the baby, and it's important to me. I did some math today.
Oh my God. You have a problem. You genuinely have a problem.
I'm just curious.
Just accept what the movie gives you.
And I'm okay. I just have a question. Did they plan this, knowing what's happening? Or was it like a happy oopsie?
Probably an oopsie.
Because I did the math, and the math was not mathing to me. And I was like, okay, from day one.
Yeah, believe it or not, it doesn't take 475 days for a baby to gestate.
I know that. I just needed to know, like...
How far along?
Yeah, I was just curious, like,
okay,
when that came to be situation, and it was around like the 273-ish mark. But that's not important. What's important to me is the why, or did they know, or did they plan? Because I'm like, babies make noise.
I don't think they could have planned.
Okay,
I don't think that they had any other option.
Well, I want to ask you, Geraldine, like, do you know, like, how far in advance you were planned to come into this world?
I was an oopsie.
Yeah, so, like...
But I feel like there are some people who have lots of oopsies, and there's some people who plan every moment perfectly. And that's fine.
In this world...
I'm just curious.
Like, you talked earlier about, like, feeling connectivity and, like, what's the purpose in life if you're not connected to somebody? Well, I mean...
I don't mean, like, physically connected.
But at the same time... When you do feel, I mean, you saw that scene where, like, in the first movie, they were listening to music in each other's ear. Yeah. And they were starting to do
cute.
it. Yeah. I mean, it's a passion. And I don't know how, I mean, in this kind of world, contraceptives, I'm sure, are, like, hard to come by.
That, or, I mean, I don't know. I'm just curious. I don't necessarily need the question answered. I'm just posing this question because, like, I'm pro-choice.
Could happen to anybody,
and if that's her choice, Evelyn's choice, I support it because that's every woman's right to do so. But I'm just curious about it because I was like, man, like a baby in this world, babies make noise, and it's a newborn baby, and they just be crying and shitting.
I think what we're trying to say is that she did not have a choice. Like there was no choice to be had because once she was pregnant, there was nobody to do like an abortion. There is no plan B by the time that she would have figured it out.
Well, some people would say that, during this kind of situation, you might not need to be doing the dang thing.
I mean, yeah. But then how would you get a movie with like an extra climactic situation?
I mean, and I get it for the plot. It makes it more like intense because you're like, oh, shut up, baby. Shut up, baby. Like, I get that that's kind of like an, oh no, because babies make noise. But to me, I was just wrapping my head around it, and I was like, man, like, they really did that. Like, they had a baby. Like, that's crazy.
And they made it work.
They made it work, but, like, that's just too much work to have that baby, to me. But I know that it's for the plot, so don't come for me. It's just for funsies. I'm just posing a question because that's what I do for fun. I like to just think about things. I just like to pose questions because it makes for good discussion, good banter as well. Yeah. You may not agree, but to me, I don't know. I'd be bulking up on that BC baby. Bulking up. No thanks. No baby for me. I'm being a pick-me right now. It's fine. I was just curious what your thought process.
No,
would
yeah,
be on
yeah,
that.
yeah. I think that's a conversation that everybody has.
Yeah, I mean, because like in
for
The
this
Walking
movie.
Dead, they also did that with Laurie's character. If you ever watched the show, she had a baby, and she literally she was like, "Oh, I'm gonna get a Plan B," and then she ended up not doing it because she was like, "No, I can do this. I can have the baby in the world," and it was stressful. And like, I'm sure everyone thought the same thing. Like, why would you do that?
Yeah.
So yeah, apocalyptic world. We get a lot of different crazy shit happening. Marcus is hanging out with the baby. I thought for sure he was gonna kill that baby. By accident, mostly.
okay.
Because he was like the oxygen thing, and he was like, because by the way, that little baby mask is teeny tiny, and he's like,
Yeah, can't cover up his nose.
Frank you were mid-sip when Geraldine said, I thought he was going to kill that baby, and you just stopped dead.
I stopped what?
You just stopped dead. You're like, no.
You didn't think that? You didn't think he was going to kill the baby by accident?
No. Oh, by accident, maybe. I just thought the way you said it at first, before you said by accident,
I don't think Marcus
I thought
would've-
you were saying like intentionally or something, you know?
No, I don't think he wanted to like hurt the baby.
No,
but, like,
no. I mean,
by
he
accident,
cares
he'd be
for the
like,
baby.
bitch, you don't need this oxygen, I do.
Well, honestly, he was a very nurturing character in general. Like, you see him often holding the baby, moving with the baby, making sure the baby's okay.
He just stressed me out in this movie very
Yeah,
badly.
very stressful.
Because of all of that, like the whole steel plant that was like a safe haven, you know, it's strong, big structure, you know, kind of falls apart in some aspect. All of this because Emmett's nice enough to help him. I'm like, you can look at it in the negative aspect there. It's like, dang, you take in these people, and then you have to go help the daughter, and then when you're gone, shit goes down south.
Yeah,
man.
that's how it is. And I want to say, especially about like the ending of the film, God, it was so moving for me to see Reagan get the radio working and start making that sound, and her approaching her alien at the same time. That finally, I think for me, the character who has the strongest arc in this is Marcus, and how like he's been scared the whole time, and here his mom and his baby brother is in this tunnel, and he realizes what he has to do, and he has the courage and bravery to walk up to this monster.
I thought it was great. I thought that was a fantastic turn of events because I did not expect that.
Oh yeah, no.
I fully expected him to fold like a lawn chair.
Yeah, and then to see like it cut between the two of them, it's beautiful. It's family.
It's intense.
Yeah,
it's very intense, and I was like, wow, like this really is a growing up kind of movie,
and that they can take care of themselves,
which is scary. That's a scary thing.
it is
So.
scary.
For that to be marketed in the horror aspect as well, it's even more meaningful to me because you fight these big monsters, you fight these big demons in life as you grow up. Being an adult's not fun, by the way. I wish I was a child again. But that is the way that life is, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You have the cards that you're dealt, and that's kind of what you can do with them. You can pull new cards. It just doesn't always happen that way. Speaking of cards, we have a tarot card video. We should go watch it.
Yeah, we did a tarot live stream.
Yeah, we did a tarot live stream
We
where
did
Bailey read our cards.
We did a tarot review.
We did
of
a
the
tarot
movie. Go watch
review
that
as well.
Honestly, even if you didn't watch the movie, if you're just interested in tarot, a lot of the episode is about explaining tarot. So
It is, but it's really cool and informative, and I've even thought about releasing an extended version of the episode
wow.
because we talk so much about the tarot cards and what they mean, and it's just really cool. Or maybe we'll do it in a separate episode on it. So who knows? I just think it's really fascinating in general, and there's a lot of details and knowledge that came with it as well. Apart from that, that's really all that I have for A Quiet Place Part 2. There's not much else. They really leave it on a cliffhanger.
really do, yeah.
And I was pissed because I was like, that's it. But, you know, and they leave it in a good spot where I think, hey, we're going to get a Quiet Place Part 3, even though the third installment of this franchise is A Quiet Place Day 1. I think that we're also going to get a trilogy aspect, so a continuation of that story.
I'm really interested to see like what other parts of the world are like, because we know now that islands are safe. So statistically speaking, unless the aliens also happen to land on Japan, Australia, and Hawaii, Japan, those three countries/states should be safe.
Not Australia.
I mean, Australia is really big, but it's like
big.
statistically speaking, like the likelihood of the aliens also landing on Australia when we already know that they're in the eastern countries and the western countries. Right. Statistically speaking, them
They're
landing
safer.
on Australia is kind of hard. Landing on Japan's even harder. And I mean, Hawaii is probably definitely safe.
Yeah, Hawaii's safe.
Right. So, like, I wonder what they're doing. Are they just vibing? Do they know what's been going down?
Oh.
I kind of want to know, like, the why it is that, like, I guess, were they just sent to the sound, like these big cities like New York? Like, are they just, like, that's what made them go there? Because
Or was it just happenstance that they landed on Earth?
They're just like, you know, where are we dropping, boys? You know?
Because it's like they landed on, like, at least from what we could see with the Abbotts, they landed on, like, a meteor from what we can tell. But then again, I don't even know if that's true. Because we see a meteor in the background that's falling, but we never hear it land. We never get a shock wave or a sound wave. I feel like the aliens
Creatures.
show up before the meteor ever strikes. So, like, maybe there was another strike somewhere else.
You're probably
or
right about
something.
it being a meteor. In my head, I remember it like as a spaceship.
No, it might be a spaceship, but it looks like a meteor in the sky.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, it looks like something bad.
I
Like
wonder,
a giant meteor.
These are questions I hope we get answered too. But I also kind of wonder if, like, these are, like, if John Krasinski would be upset with these kind of questions.
On day one, so we get to meet Emmett on day one, and he's there at the game as well. Whenever this stuff starts happening, and, you know, they see the big thing up in the sky, and they're like, oh, it's kind of weird. You know, there's this moment between Lee and Emmett where Lee is like, hey, man, have you heard from your brother? And he's like, not yet, but I'll check in with him or something. And he's like, he works for, like, an army base or something like
military.
that. And it's like, oh, interesting. I wonder, I'm just curious because of the way that Lee is, what was he doing? Like, what was his, like, what was his job, you know?
Beforehand, yeah. He was probably, like, worked at a...
Because he's very resourceful and very, like, quick to think.
Maybe he worked at the factory, and that's why.
Or maybe he worked at a co-op.
These are just questions that I want. John Krasinski,
I don't know
we
if they
have
have co-ops
questions.
up there, Don.
You know what? My thought process behind this is if they did this for Saw and they helped, you know, with like continuity, helped tie in those loose ends, helped answer some of those fan theories and
That'd
all
be
kinds
cool.
of things. They can do that for A Quiet Place. Do that for us. It's not that hard.
Now, Bailey, I will say I interpreted in the first movie specifically that Lee was aware that there's several of the monsters and that the 3 came from, like, his personal surveillance of the area. But
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it was listed at least in, like, their specific area, which in my opinion includes town and where Emmett is. There were 3 that he knew of. And, like, that is, like, solidified. Like, they wouldn't show that or mention that in the movie if that's not, like, solid information, right?
Okay.
Whereas, you know, now in this one, I don't think they expected you to remember the only 3 monsters kind of a thing. But at the end of the first movie, they've only killed 1.
Yeah.
Right.
And they kill another one.
So, like, the idea when the first movie ended, like, way back when the movie came out, it was like, okay, they killed 1, and then Evelyn, like, cocks the shotgun. And it's like, okay, they're going to go and kill the other 2. So they can live in peace in their area,
You know,
right?
and I remember
but they didn't do that, ultimately, because they
Yeah.
wanted to continue a different story.
For sure. And honestly, I know we talked about it briefly, but for whatever reason, I remember the first one ending with, like, a bunch of aliens, like, about to storm the house or whatever.
You know what's funny is I kind of
You do too?
vaguely remember that too.
Yeah.
But
No,
I could
you
be
do
wrong.
because you see them on the
Surveillance. I
Yeah,
remember,
you
like,
see them on the
Oh, yes, yes,
surveillance.
yes,
You
yes,
see
yes.
2 of them running through the field.
in my memory, I see, like, 10s of them in the surveillance cams.
No,
I don't
it
know
was
why.
just
Maybe
2.
this
It
is
was
a
just
fever
2.
dream.
Probably. You ready to rank it?
I am ready to rank it. Are you ready to rank it?
No, not really. Because, you know, a lot of the times when I give a movie a 10, it's because, like, I resonated with it so deeply. This movie, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I also give a 10, but it's not necessarily because of how much I resonated with it, just because of the quality, like the filmmaking, the attention to detail, the acting in this film. Like, I just like the cinematography and just how they use the camera to tell events and stories. And I just think the culmination of all those things is just you get a high quality product at the end of the day that is full of human emotion, connectivity, and all the while providing this very tense thing. And especially, it's hard to make a sequel to anything.
Yeah, that's true.
Oftentimes they fail because, like, they ramp up the prospects in certain areas, like, oh, it has to be crazier, has to be more tense.
Yep.
And oftentimes I feel like they focus too much of that to where they fell. Like, it got too big and too out of hand, where this one, they expanded not just on like there's more aliens now, but they did like the family and the personal growth of all the characters and how they react to the scenario they were given. I think again what Emily Blunt said about like this movie's about how do we stop the bleeding. I think that was a really honest way of like expanding this, and I think John Krasinski would only do a sequel in that manner if it was like honest, if it was a good story, and I think like that's what we got, and because of that I give it a 10.
Okay, I don't remember what we did for the original one.
Pretty sure we gave it both a 10.
So for this one, while it's very, very, very good, it was not out of the two that we've watched so far. It was not my favorite, and I'll tell you why. I think it's specifically just because of like I didn't feel as connected to these characters as I did in the first one. The first one, I actually cried. You know, to me, I mean, I don't use that as like the mark of a good film, as if I cry, but to me, when I watched the first film, I grieved with them when he, you know, specifically between the parent, and he was like, I've always loved you, that kind of thing. And I was like, oh my God, like that was just a precious, sweet moment between the family dynamic where this daughter is like beating herself up and constantly just, you know, hurting herself and sabotaging everything because she's like, they don't care about me. They don't care what I do. They hate me because they think that I'm the one who killed, you know, the brother. But that's not the case. I felt more enthralled by that story. Okay. This one had a lot more action, which I appreciate. It kept me on my toes for sure, and I was stressed, but there was also like a moment where I did feel a little bit bored, where I was like, okay, what's next? And I'm not saying that that's a like any fault or anything. Like the story was very well done, but it also just felt like it went so quick as well that I was like, I'm still processing what happened by the end. So to me, it's not perfect, so I will give it a 9 because it's still high in my book. It's still very good. Fair
enough. And I think those are very like apt criticisms. I think you're right in just saying that the first movie is simply more intimate.
Yeah.
It's just a tighter cast. It's a tighter glimpse into the specific thing. It's just a more zoomed in lens than it is from this expansion. So I can see that. And I mean, in saying all that too, it does lead me to think that the next one probably is we're probably getting even further away from that.
A wider spectrum, a wider scale,
it
which
might
is
not
a
be
little,
as intimate either.
Little nerve-wracking, I will say. Because
it might be more of a spectacle movie this time around.
Which, again, nervous about it because we don't necessarily know. We haven't watched any trailers, I don't think.
I haven't.
I mean, we're going in blind. I've been trying to do better about not seeing trailers, but you can't really escape it when you're at the theater. So
that's true.
I mean,
well, I just show up after the trailers, you know.
I don't like showing up after the trailers, though, because it's fun. I like watching trailers, though. Bailey, what did you think of this one compared to the last as well?
Oh, I loved it. I just really like getting to see Cillian Murphy's character, Emmett, and Reagan interact with each other. I just think that they had a lot of chemistry. And I'm just a fan of that sort of, like, reluctant, like, protective man sort of a lead, I guess. I really like it. And seeing his growth, it's really heartwarming to me, I think, because there's a big question going around right now on the internet of, like, as a woman, like, would you trust yourself with a random man or with a bear in the woods? You know, and every woman chooses the bear. And it's heartwarming to see in a fantasy setting, like, a man actually do good. Because we all know that ain't how it would be. But I really like their chemistry, like I said. I like getting to see more of the world and how everyone's been affected by this and not just the Abbott family. I like that sort of expansion. And especially, like, the opening sequence of the first day where this happened to the Abbott family and their entire town, like, that has stuck with me, like, really, really hard, more so than any other part of both of these movies, I think. And it's just... It was done so well. It was filmed so well, and it feels so visceral and so real when you watch it, I think, in a way that I think very few of these, like, sort of alien horror movies actually, or TV shows even, like Stranger Things, it's very hard for them to achieve, and I think this movie achieved it. So it gets like a 10 out of 10 from me. I really enjoyed watching it. And while this movie gave me some anxiety with certain scenes, like Marcus accidentally locking himself in the baby in the chamber, yeah, that sucks. But it doesn't hurt me nearly as bad as Evelyn stepping on the nail in the first movie. Ugh. Yeah, so, yeah. It's in my good graces.
One thing I will say about Emmett as a character, he's very much like the dad that doesn't want the animal, but then ends up being his best friend.
Yes,
that's the kind of
exactly.
vibe. And I'm excited to see what comes of it. I hope that his character doesn't die. The way we leave off, I don't know. It's kind of shaky.
Yeah. Well, that's how you want it to be, right?
I like the continuity, so keep it up, John Krasinski.
Well, between a 10 and a 9, that makes it our second place.
It makes for a second place, which literally falls right into place for A Quiet Place Part 2.
Join us next week to see what we think about the brand new one. Quiet Place Day 1.
Yes, absolutely. Additionally, we want to make sure that you are aware. Use code FrightFlightPod for 10% off of Vampons. These are cruelty-free, vegan, BPA-free, eco-friendly tampons. And, they also are FSA, HSA eligible. These boxes are refillable, so that's why they're eco-friendly. And they're also just kind of cool packaging as well, so that's fun. And, periods don't have to suck, my friends. They don't.
Yeah, I would know firsthand. But yeah, thanks for joining us, guys. Catch us next week. We'll be here back at it again, finishing our first bite-sized season.
We will be finishing our first bite-sized season, and then we'll be going into the next bite-sized season right after that. But also don't forget to follow us on social media, like, comment, subscribe, follow everywhere that we are, wherever you listen to us. Do the things so that you get those notifications when we do post videos.
We're at Fright Flight Pod.
At Fright Flight Pod. Yes, that is correct. And then send us fan mail, send us messages, recommendations, hate mail, you name it. We have trolls. We love you. You keep us young.
See you guys next time.
See you next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Fright or Flight, a Live Oaks Village production. This episode was hosted by Geraldine Johnson and Saul Alberto Arzmendi Ochoa. Produced by me, Bailey B. Edited by Geraldine Johnson and music composition by Saul Alberto Arzmendi Ochoa.